All right, guys. Thank you all again for joining us tonight. We're back again with another episode of the Carving Podcast brought to you by the International Association of Woodcarvers. I'm Blake Lunsford of Lunsford Carvings.
And I'm Thom of Daily Woodcarving.
This week on our show, we have one of the best caricature carvers, I think, in the business. He's one of the co-founders of the Caricature Carvers of America. He's been a big supporter of our weekly meetings through the International Association of Woodcarvers. And we're happy to have him on tonight. We have Mr. Dave Stetson with us. Hey, Dave, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good.
Good. Thank you for joining us.
You can drop the Mr. part of it, but yeah, thanks.
It's a pretty formal podcast, Dave.
That's right. We'll go ahead and get started with some questions. We threw out opportunity for people to ask questions this week and let us know things that they want to hear about from you. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. One of the things that people wanted to know about is with COVID and the way that things have changed as far as carving goes and, the virtual environment and that kind of thing. How has that affected you with your classes and thinking about what you're going to do as far as teaching classes since COVID started?
Well, as bad as COVID is, and I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, but best thing that ever happened for me, and for wood carving in general. That's just my opinion. I mean, the way it's worked out. It's been 11 years now. 11 years ago, Michelle had a major stroke, and I've been her caregiver. To travel and teach means I have to leave her alone. And that's just at this point, that's no longer an option. Early in the process, she was still pretty strong, but each seemingly every 6 months to a year, I can see a decline in her physical ability to get around, and she needs somebody with her pretty much full time. So in that respect, it's been a good thing because it forced me to do something that I didn't know I could do, which was holding online classes. I just was grabbing at straws. And I knew I belonged to a wood turners club locally here in Phoenix. And every one of their meetings is focused around a demonstration. And they have two large TV screens set up for everybody to watch. It's a large club. In the winter months, we have maybe 180 people at a meeting. It drops off to maybe 60 in the summer months, but it's a large group, and they're able to video to put everything up on the video screen so that we can watch it.
Right.
So when COVID hit and there's not going to be any more meetings, they started using the Zoom app to hold their meetings, and I started thinking, well, this is really cool. I wonder if we could do something like that for wood carving, perhaps rather than hold a meeting, because nobody likes the meeting part of a wood carving meeting. Then nobody wants to sit through the business part of it. It's just a necessary evil.
Right.
But if we could hold demonstrations like they do for the wood turning. Now with wood turning, the project is mounted on the lathe, so it doesn't move around. It's in a fixed position. And so they can zoom in with a couple of different cameras, different angles, and it works out really good. The downside to wood carving is that the piece is constantly rotating and turning and moving around. And which means that if you don't have somebody there pointing a camera and following the action, especially when you zoom in to see something close, you don't have to move very far before you're out of frame, and nobody knows what the hell you're doing.
Right.
because they're just looking at your leg or your lap or something, you know. So it meant that there was a lot of practice involved staying in frame, for me especially. You've been in some of my classes, Blake. You know, I had to put blue tape on my table so I know where to stay.
Right.
And even with that blue tape there, I'm sitting here alone and there's nobody to tell me, you know, you're not in between the tape lines. You got to keep it over there. So I just have to constantly be looking and reminding myself. But I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know the technology that was involved. I didn't know, I know none, and I still don't. I know none of that. But I did know somebody who did know the technological end of things, and that was Yaron Yedidia. And so, I mean, I may be going down the rabbit hole as far as answering your question goes, but I contacted Yaron and he said, oh, yeah, I know about that Zoom thing. He says, my wife teaches school through a Zoom app. So he said, we've got the paid for subscription. So if you want, I will host it for you. And all you got to do is carve, and I'll take care of the rest of it. And I thought, wow, this is almost too good to be true.
Right.
So we started out, the first class we did, I'm trying to think back I think it was just a standing figure.
Yeah.
And I had to figure out everything from scratch because nobody that I knew was doing it. If there was anyone doing it, I don't know who it was, and I still don't. So I was kind of pioneering it, and I had to come up with all kinds of answers to questions that didn't exist. So like, how long do you spend on a class? What's the timeline that works for students? Where they, you know, is an hour enough? Is an hour and a half enough? Is 2 hours too much? What about 3 hours? And how long can we go technologically? I mean, I don't know.
Right.
I know with videos, the longer a video runs, the more bytes of information are being recorded and held wherever, however that happens. So I thought maybe 2 hours and break it up would work. And it seems to have worked out fine. I got lucky. Next question was, how much do I charge? I mean, I know what I would charge if I had to travel and teach a class, and nobody's had a problem with the prices that have been established. And we talk amongst each other as teaching carvers, you know, Jeff and Vic and Janet, and Desi, and all the CCA guys. We've kind of got a ballpark figure. Now there's 2 or 3 of them that are kind of charging twice what the rest of us charge.
Right. But
there's kind of a ballpark figure that we all kind of subscribe to. So is that a fair price? Because I'm doing it online. I'm not with the people. So I thought, well, I'll pick a price that's somewhere in the middle, halfway between half of what I was charging to travel, because I don't have any travel expenses. So
that's right.
If I can save on my end, then the student can save on their end, because they don't have to travel either.
Right.
And so I just grabbed a number out of the air that was half of what I was charging for traveling and teaching, and it seems to have worked out really well. And I mean, there are the only disadvantage to doing an online class is the camaraderie that you get, you know, the handshakes and the slap on the back, and, you know, the little barbs you shoot back and forth, you know, the little instant response to what somebody's doing. You know, and sitting around having a beer after class. And I mean, that doesn't happen. I can sit around and have a beer, but I'm drinking it by myself, you know?
That's right. Yeah.
But from a student standpoint, they can drink a beer during class if they want. I mean,
Right.
it's not an issue. They can do what they want. They can take a nap. They can skip class, play hooky, because they can play it back later because it's all recorded for them.
Well, and really from a student standpoint, I'll go ahead and interject this. And I think we've talked about it a few times, is that, you know, for me, if I sit into your class and you do 3 weekends and you're doing, you know, 2 hours a day, 3 weekends in a row. That's 8 hours each week, 16 hours of instruction. And then that's instruction that I'm getting directly from you the whole time. So instead of sitting in a class and having you come by, you know, every 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever it might be, you're really getting to see everything that you're doing the whole time that you're in the class. So even though technologically it's a little more difficult to see what you're doing because you're twisting and turning, you still get that time. You get the opportunity to ask questions and see exactly what you're doing the whole time. So actually, from a student standpoint, it's cheaper for us, and we're actually getting more than what we would get if we were in class with you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't work, and it won't work well for all the instructors. I'm not going to mention any names, but anybody who takes carving classes knows that basically the majority of carving instructors do very little instructing. It's more of here, what do you want me to show you? And then they grab your carving and they carve on it for you for 10 minutes and hand it back to you and say, I'll catch you on the next go around. Right. You know, so you get them 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the afternoon, and maybe you can get a third 10-minute session in. Yeah. But that's all you get, is to watch them for 10 minutes carving on your piece.
Right.
And that's the only way some instructors, I use the term lightly, damn good carvers, but that's the only way they know to show somebody how to do something, is to do it and have you watch. So it's it requires on my part a lot of preparation for a class. I can't believe how much time and effort goes into a class online as compared to a sit down and carve with the good old boys session. So yeah, and that's, you know, and that's all because of the COVID pandemic. Had that not happened, I'd be flying to Indiana this week.
Right.
And the other good thing about that, you know, the fact that you're teaching from online is that you are getting probably way more people that would never sit in a class with you, because like for myself in Canada, like chances of me ever traveling down to wherever to take a class, like I've got young kids and stuff, so it's a lot harder for people like me. But now everybody is able to sit in a classroom with you. And I personally have only heard amazing things about your classes since it started, a year ago. But the other thing is that you have them all online. Huron's got them all online. Correct?
Yeah, right. So if I were going to a geographical location to teach a class, I would have to find a minimum of 10 people, maybe a maximum of 15, who lived within those geographical boundaries, whatever that boundary might be, who can get to that class. And I have to have a classroom that's large enough to accommodate them. Online, my classroom is unlimited in size.
Right.
The number of students that I can take is pretty much unlimited. I was working with Ryan Olson, and Ryan has done a class where he had so many people signing up, he got scared, and he cut it off. So he cut it off at 60 students.
Oh, wow.
So that's it. I don't want to take more than 60, because he had never done it before, and that was the first time he had taught a class. And prior to that, he averaged 10 in a class, 10 or 12. And so when he had 60 of them signed up, it kind of scared him. He says, well, what am I going to do if they all start asking me questions? Well, you answer them. But 9 times out of 10, if somebody has a question to ask, it's the same question that several people have. So answering it for one, you're answering it for all.
Yep.
And I've been really surprised at how few questions I get. But it's been good. It's been real good. Good for the carving community. Good for me. And I've seen my carving get better. And one of the things that's happening through this that I had thought about on occasion. I mean, I'm not preoccupied with this thought, but I've got a limited number of years remaining in my life. And my ability to carve is going to be dictated by my physical ability to cut the wood. And I've got a lot of friends in the carving community, most who are older than I am, who it was a challenge on my part to try to carve circles around some of these older guys. And the older they got, the easier it was to carve circles around them. And now I'm getting to the point where I can't even carve a circle. I mean, I am really, really slowing down. But I think what I have learned over the years has come from all the greats who preceded me, and trying to put 2 and 2 together and having it add up to 4 when so often it would only add up to 3. And then when I think I got it figured out, it's adding up to 5, and then that's not working. And so there's a lot of trial and error learning to carve, even if somebody's showing you how. But listening to Susan Hendricks on Saturday talking about teaching, and she was promoting classes for wood carvers. And one of the comments she made, and I've heard it many times in the past also, what you can learn in a class on a weekend would take you a year or 2 to learn on your own.
Yep.
So you can advance so much faster that way. So it's kind of been a goal of mine at this point in my life to somehow pass on the knowledge that I've gained over the years, while I'm still able to pass that knowledge on. I don't want to be the old World War I guy in a doughboy hat who's sitting there getting interviewed by somebody, what you learn in the war there? No, I've got to pass that on as best I can for those who are interested. I mean, people that don't care, it doesn't matter. But for those that do care, I want to be able to share what I've learned.
And for sure, you've been super generous to us by being on, I think now 2 videos of ours and now the podcast. And we appreciate every time you come on and like share your knowledge. And so does everyone else that sits there. You can sit and watch the screen of everybody who's there watching, and they are glued to their screen when you're talking, which is amazing because like you have so much knowledge, and we just appreciate that you're willing to come on and do this for us.
Well, you know, the best thing for me is that somebody will listen, because my wife is so sick of listening to me talk. She doesn't want to hear it anymore.
Well, and not only that, I'll add to that, Thom. If you go over on to Dave's on his Facebook page, not only does he teach classes, but he shares so much on Facebook that's free that, you know, people can just go out and check out, that not everybody takes advantage of. I mean, I know a lot of people come to me and say, hey, where can I see this? And I'll say, well, have you seen Dave's page? Have you gone over and look at the stuff he's sharing on there? So like he said, it's not only just sharing in classes and, you know, doing these videos, he's giving away free stuff too for people that want to go out and learn and do better.
Well, to be honest with you, Blake, that's by design. I put the free stuff out there so that people will see what, you know, if he's doing that for free, what's he going to do if I pay him to show me something? So
yeah,
I don't get deep into explanations, but it's just more of a demonstration mode to show what's out there and what's available. And Facebook has been a real good way to do that. There's a lot of guys that are posting things that they've watched me do on Facebook without ever taking a class, and they're doing a decent job of it. So yeah, you know, that's good if they can get that out of it for nothing. But I think there's a whole lot more to be gained if they take a class. So
oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So one of the questions I was going to ask you, Dave, was you've sat around tables and carved with some of the best carvers out there in the past, like currently, like, you know, some of the best, like they're some of your biggest friends. Are there any carvers out there that have caught your eye, that are new carvers, up and coming carvers, that people should, you know, look at their stuff for inspiration? Is there who's the person that you've noticed lately?
Wow.
Because I know you've got an eye for this, right? Like I know you can see good carvings.
Well, you know, there is one who just blows me away with the creativity and the drive that I see, knowing what goes into a carving and the time commitment. And that would be Sarah Barclough. She does some amazingly creative stuff, and she continues to push the envelope. And so many people, and mostly what I'm seeing is online, people that are sharing their work online. There's some carvers that I don't know them. I don't know. They're like carvers from Russia and Europe and the Philippines, and every once in a while something pops up and it's like, wow, that is just blowing me away. The time and the dedication, and many of these carvers are relatively young. Where they've learned their trade or their craft, that I couldn't say, but because I don't know them. But when I do see these carvers on Facebook or Instagram who impress me, I reach out to them and try to get, I don't want to say on a first name basis with them, but I want to get to know them as best I can to a point where I can ask questions to hopefully try to pick their brain a little bit. There's some carvers who I thought were really way ahead of the curve as far as what they were carving. But I've watched them, and unfortunately, over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, they've not improved. Their stuff still looks great, still looks good, but it's the same thing I saw 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And they're just not, they're not trying to move themselves to the next plateau, to the next level.
Right.
And I don't have time for people that are complacent with what they're doing and where they're at.
So that's kind of like echoing Susan's comment on the weekend about taking courses or classes, and she's always taking classes. You're a student of carving for life. Like you're constantly learning and wanting to evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll use my next class, the one I've got coming up, as an example. Head shapes and expressions, and how they go together, and trying to take the basics to the next level. And the more I've worked on studying expressions, the more I've researched it and done a lot of online research, done a lot of digging through Instagram and Pinterest and seeing what caricature artists do and what they've come up with, and scientific analysis of a facial expression, the muscles that are involved. I've got probably a dozen books here that cover expression, from the Gary Fagan realistic expression book to books on cartooning, and trying to sort that out and boil it down to refine it to its simplest form, so that I can teach it and then use that as a stepping stone to move out. And sometimes it's referred to as, going down a rabbit hole, because you get started and you don't know where the hell you're going or where it's going to end or what's going to be at the end of it. But it's consumed a lot of my time, a lot of it. I started putting stuff into sketchbooks, and I made myself a template to draw ovals for the shape of a head that's about the size of a figure that I'm carving, so that I can keep things consistent. And God, in a weekend, I had 300 heads that had different head shapes and different expressions. And that's going down a rabbit hole.
That's a deep
and they're just sketches, they're just drawings.
Right.
But I get 50 of them or 25 of them on a page. So 2 pages is 50 and 4 pages is 200. It just keeps growing. And I can't teach all that in a class, but in order to get ready to teach the students, I find I've got to teach myself.
Yep.
And that's the process of, trying to advance and trying to do something different. I look back at things that I did. I look back at them because on Facebook, they come up as memories,
Right.
And it's like, when did I do that? Oh God. Well, actually, that was kind of good. I wonder if I could still do that.
Yeah.
But because I'm not doing that, I've moved on. I'm doing other things. Sometimes old things look fresh again. but I don't want to make the mistake of going back to that I was doing 5 years ago or 3 years ago or whatever it was.
Well, and that reminds me, Dave, of what you said in one of your classes about the book that you have out there, the caricature carving book, and the fact that somebody may come to you and ask you how you did something out of the book, and you're like, well, I've already moved past that. I don't do it that way anymore.
Yeah. I did that book with Fox Chapel, and they're still selling the damn thing. Alan Gianakova is the editor, I think, or the owner, or he's the big guy at Fox Chapel, and he sent me a letter, I don't know, 3 years ago, and said that even though the book has been out for 15 years or whatever it was at the time, it's still one of their best sellers. And he would like to see something fresh from me. And so I said, yeah, okay, good. So that's cool. So right away I sit down and I start putting notes, and I grab a sketchbook to start the book and start putting in drawings and ideas and things. And 6 months into it, I go back to look at the first pages in the sketchbook, and it's like, oh, Jesus, I don't want to put that in there.
Right.
Because I've found a better way, or I'm doing it differently.
Yeah.
And because of that, and this is something Roger Schroeder told me years ago when I did the first book. He said, by the time the book is ready to print, you will have already moved on beyond that. So you've got to realize that that's going to be the case. So do what you do, explain it, and put it out there, and then you can move on. But if you don't get it out there, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't have Roger kicking my butt anymore. So I just haven't done it. But I think the online classes are taking the place of that. And the Woodcarving Academy, throw a little plug in there for that. When we started doing the online classes, the nice thing about Zoom is they have a feature where you can record your Zoom class and store it on the Zoom app. But halfway through the first class of 6 2-hour sessions, we had eaten up all the storage space that was available to us on Zoom. So Yaron had to find another place to store it. And the only place logically that was working out for us was to put it on YouTube. But to throw it on YouTube, you're kind of putting it out there on a service that everybody has access to. If they know the passcode to get in, they're in free.
Yep.
And that's not fair to the people that are paying for the class. So I got a call one day from Yaron. He says, look, he says, I'm going to set up a website where we can store the videos. So we don't have to use Zoom and we don't have to use YouTube. We'll have our own website. And he said, I found a name that we can use. It's called Woodcarving Academy. And I thought, okay, well, that's cool. Now what? Well, I'm just telling you, he says, I'll set it up. Are you okay with that? And I said, yeah, I'm fine with that. So that's how the website came to be, because we had to find a place to store the videos so that the students can come back and look at them. And then it's evolved. There used to be a website called Carving Online.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to take credit for it because I didn't do any of the work to create Carving Online, but it was my idea. And I was in Creed, Colorado, sitting on the porch of the motel, talking with Dallas DG one evening. And I said, it'd be nice if we had an online source for carving videos that people could go to and watch. He said, yeah, that would be. So we were talking it up, hashing it back and forth. And finally he says, you know, D. Hallbrook is a friend, and he knows more about that kind of stuff than anybody else I know. And D had a service where he was creating websites for people. And so Dallas went to D and said, what about videos? Could you do? Oh yeah, I could do videos just like anything else, you know? So they came up with Carving Online, and that was great. But every month, somebody had to figure out how many hits each video was getting. There's technology that tells them what that is, but then they've got to go in and figure out how much money they made that month. And I mean, it was a bookkeeping nightmare for somebody. And that fell into Donna DG's lap, Dallas's wife. So every month she had to write checks out to all these different wood carvers and mail them out, because they hadn't taken it to the level that Yaron has, where he just uses a service that deposits the check into the carver's account. So, I mean, we never have to touch it, see it. We just get a report from him each month of how many hits we get, our percentage of the income. And it works out really, really well. But everybody who had videos, now that Yaron has a website, everyone who had videos on Carving Online, and I told him who I would recommend and to check with, and they were all able to get their videos that they had from Carving Online, and those are all now on the Woodcarving Academy. So I mean, and plus all the new stuff that's going in there. So if I teach a class, it's not through Woodcarving Academy, okay? The class I teach is through me. Yaron happens to have a website called Woodcarving Academy and advertises the classes through Woodcarving Academy, but everything goes through the instructor initially. He doesn't have anything to do with it other than he runs the Zoom. He hosts the Zoom class and records it and puts it on the website.
Really out of necessity, though, it sounds like the Woodcarving Academy was created because you had a problem with YouTube and the fact that people were accessing it without having the authority to do that. And now all of a sudden it's lucrative for a lot of carvers because they're able to put their classes out there online.
Well, I don't know that people were accessing it without the authority to do that, but that was a potential possibility that we wanted to make sure we could nip in the bud.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's been a good thing.
No, it's been great. Really has. I've not had a negative response from even one student.
Yeah.
In any way. Everything's been positive. So I got no complaints.
That kind of goes back to what Nate Ellerton said about a month ago, that there are no mean carvers out there.
Yeah, there are. I'll disagree with that. Who do you want to hear about?
That's a different episode.
Yeah. No, I have to be careful because it would be real easy to throw somebody under the bus. No, it's I mean, we're human. Everyone is. Just because they're wood carvers, they're still humans. And some of those nice wood carvers are nice on the outside, but they're SOBs on the inside, you know.
Right.
You kind of learn just by. I've always been so damn naive. People would screw me over, and I had no freaking clue what was going on until it was too late. But it's generally speaking, the SOBs get shunned by the wood carving community pretty quick. So they're around, but they don't last long.
Right.
So we kind of it's a small enough community that it's pretty easy to police ourselves.
Yep. That's for sure.
You know, there's other social media venues that just start out really, really nice, and it only takes one or two a-holes to screw it up for everybody.
Yeah.
But that hasn't been the case with the wood carving so far. There's some competition, and the competition's a good thing.
Keeps you on your toes.
What's that?
It keeps you on your toes, competition.
Well, yeah. I mean, it forces you to validate yourself and what you're doing. Without the competition, there'd be no reason for people to stay online, you know, and stay on the straight and narrow. They could screw with people all they want.
And in talking about that, Dave, I know this week is the CCA competition up in Carvers, Indiana. Was that formed for that very reason? Yeah, I know CCA was formed first, but then the competition came after the fact. Was that for people I guess for you all to identify up and comers and also, you know, kind of get an opportunity to see some of the best work out there?
You know, the association with Carvers initially started with Thom Brown. Thom was a member for many years. Thom has passed on. But that club in Carvers owns a building. It's a small town, but they own a 3-story building. It's the tallest building in town. And the club outright owns it. And they have on the second floor of that clubhouse, it was an old Oddfellows hall from years ago. And on the second floor, there's like hotel bedroom suites. Old, but clean and well taken care of. So instructors that come there can stay at the clubhouse. So they don't have to get a place to stay. There's a kitchen downstairs. They have a team of folks that fixes lunches during the seminars. It's a great venue. And we were going there and teaching classes, and we were going to have a competition. So the question became, where do we hold the competition? Do we move it around the country? Who's going to be responsible for the carvings that are entered? How long is the public going to have a chance to see them? And as I recall, Randy Landon came up with the idea, said, why don't we just do a mail-in competition, a warehouse competition, he called it, I believe, where we have people send the carvings in, we judge them, and we send them back. If you're familiar with carving shows all around the country, you're familiar with the shows in California, you're familiar with the shows in Maryland and Ohio and Wisconsin and Texas, and Arizona. And the reason you know about all those shows and you're familiar with it is because of what comes out in the magazine, Chip Chats or Woodcarving Illustrated.
Yep.
They photograph and they put these carvings in the magazine, and that's how we know about it. We don't go to all those shows. Maybe a handful of people that would go to from one coast to the other. But for the most part, people only know about it because of what they see in the magazine.
Right.
So why should our competition be any different? So Tommy said, well, I bet you the folks in Converse would like to host that, be a part of it. And so he kind of volunteered his club, and the fact that they've got a whole building, a clubhouse, where they've got room to receive them. So then the first year we tried this, we had 3 guys going there to teach, and then we had to have 3 guys go there to judge. And I said, that's kind of stupid. Why don't we make the guys that are teaching do the judging? You're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. They're getting paid to teach. They can earn their keep a little bit, judge the competition. So after that first year, the 3 that went there to teach became the 3 judges. So the competition's gone quite well over the years. I mean, we've had our snafus, that things don't always go according to plan. When you got a bunch of well-intentioned folks that are opening up boxes and getting carvings out to put out so that the judges can see them all, things happen, you know. Not everybody is the best packer in the world. Some people just throw peanuts in a box and put a carving on top of a bed of peanuts and fill the rest of it up with peanuts and put it in the mail. And they don't, they don't put one box inside another. Some people go to great lengths to ship and protect their carvings. But that's part of it as well. I mean, people that want to ship carvings around because they're getting into competitions or because they're selling their work and want to be able to send it across country have to learn how to pack a carving. And boy, we've learned a lot. We put articles into Chip Chats and Woodcarving Illustrated at different times about packing carvings and what's the best way to do it and how to do it. So we learned a lot through the process as well. But that's how our association formed with the club there in Converse. Early on, the CCA would go wherever somebody wanted us. You know, as people would say, would you come have your next meeting in Albuquerque? Yeah, we'll go to Albuquerque. So we'd all show up in Albuquerque for our meeting, and then we'd do something for the club. You know, we'd have an afternoon or an evening where people could come around and sit and chat and carve and do demonstrations for them and stuff. And then they would reciprocate by throwing a potluck dinner for us or something, you know. I mean, it was kind of a one hand wash the other thing. And we would go pretty much wherever anybody would have us. But at one time we went to Converse, and I can't recall the year right offhand, but there's a banner in the clubhouse that was put up when we were there. So, and that's still hanging there, but that's got the year on it. But that's how we first became familiar with the Converse operation and the size of the building and everything. But yeah, it's been it seems like everything that we learn in the wood carving world is learned the hard way. You know, there's if there's a manual on how to operate, I haven't seen it yet. What do they call it? SOP, standard operating procedure.
Right.
Yeah.
But if there is one, Dave, you could probably write it. Like, you've written books, you've worked on some pretty big projects. You co-created the CCA. Like, you've got some pretty big accomplishments out there in the wood carving world. So,
Well, our first project, we had a meeting. It was in Wichita, actually. And so the Wichita group hosted us. Rossiter Rough Outs was the rough out place at the time. And he, be careful what I say, but he hosted us. And I almost forgot where I was going with this. I was thinking about saying something I shouldn't say. Yeah. Hopefully you can edit my dead space here.
that's up to Dave.
What was I talking? What was the
You were
question?
talking about the first big project you all did.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So at the meeting, we had decided that we were going to do a group project. And the project we decided to do was going to be an 1880s saloon. And everybody could do pretty much whatever they wanted. And you had the whole year from that meeting till the next meeting to figure out what you were going to do. So you carve your piece. So I came up with a scale. I think it was 1 inch equals 1 foot. So that means a 6 foot cowboy is going to be 6 inches tall. And we designed the saloon, and everybody was going to design their figures. And the way we designed the saloon, Doug Rain came up from Tucson, and Steve Prescott and Dave Dunham drove up from Fort Worth. And they used my shop, my studio, while I was working. Those 3 guys were in there using everything they could find to build a cardboard mock-up of this saloon. And they started using carvings that I had in the shop to make them fit. And if I had a half-done cowboy that was more than 6 inches tall, they just cut his feet off to make him 6 inches and glue cardboard feet on it. They, man, they tore my place apart. But I said, boy, I don't want to do this again. Anyway, they also decided they were going to do a book. So what are we going to do the book about? Well, about that time we had to break for lunch, and while we were eating lunch, I said, well, if we're going to do a book and we're going to do a project, why don't we do the book on the project?
Yeah.
Well, that's a great idea. So we did the CCA saloon, and everybody was able to contribute their 2 cents worth, put it in there. We showed up in Fort Worth to Steve was a school teacher, so we went in and used the school's shop over the weekend to set up the saloon, and we got it set up, and people started putting their pieces in. I remember Tex Haas did a bartender, and the bartender didn't fit behind the bar, so Tex had to recarve a bartender. Claude had also carved a bartender, but Claude's was the right size. Claude followed directions. Tex didn't. These guys, they don't follow directions. They're the most untrustworthy group I know. Just just what it is. But yeah, and that came off really well. So right away, the problem we had was that the saloon folded on top of itself. So the backdrop, the floor, and the two sides, when you split it down the middle, one side fits on another and makes a cube. And all the carvings with the foam layers with a cutout for the carving to fit in it, and they're all numbered, and it all fits inside. Nice, neat package. The problem is when you put it in a box, it exceeded the shipping specifications for UPS. It's so many inches going length, width, and height. And it exceeded by not a lot, but a little bit. So we couldn't ship it around UPS, so we had to have it trucked everywhere it went.
Wow.
So then it became an albatross. So when we started the next project, which was going to be a circus, I said, okay, but let's learn from our past mistakes. We're going to have to keep this within the UPS shipping specifications. So again, we're going to do the circus and we're going to do a book. Well, what happens to the circus? It's sitting on a 4x8 sheet of plywood base with the circus tent and everything else. It's like, holy crap. I mean, the only way we could take it from point A to point B was somebody driving it in a pickup truck.
Yep.
Somebody was going down the highway with it in the back of their truck. And it was somewhere in the Midwest. I remember it was windier than I'll get out. And they had a camper shell. And the wind blew the camper shell off the pickup truck. And the circus was scattered all over I-80 somewhere in Nebraska or Iowa. So that all had to be put back together and repaired. But no, nothing has gone according to plan. Nothing has gone smooth. It's all been learned by trial and error. But yeah.
For anyone who wants to see those books, they are on the CCA website, and I think they're available through Fox Chapel again. So they are out there, and they're incredible to see the artwork and probably the amount of time that went into all those carvings.
Yeah. I think one of our most successful projects was the train that we had done. Mm-hmm. That train was on display at the I think it's called the California Train Museum in Sacramento. It was on display for a whole year. And they set that thing up. They had, I mean, if you walk into an art museum to see displays, they've got people that know what they're doing to set those displays up. And they had one of those kind of people design the display for the train. And wow, it was over the top. But when we got done with that exhibit, it's like, oh, well, now what do we do with it? So I got a box sitting here that's got the car I did and the figures for it, but it's spread all over here in Timbuktu. But there wasn't, who the hell's going to buy a train that's, you know, where the cars are, you know, 16 inches tall and 24 inches long.
I'm sure there's some collector out there that would love to get their hands on that.
Well, we weren't able to find them. So we ended up breaking it up and sending it back. Doug's got the engine, I've got the car, and Gerald's got the caboose. Cleve's got the tender that he and Vic did.
But it seems as though some of the more recent books that you all have done, they're more individual projects instead of like big projects. Did that stem out of the problem of moving things around the country and stuff? It's easier just to do an individual project and do a book,
yeah,
based off of those projects.
Yeah, exactly. And even with those, people have a hard time following instructions.
Right.
We did a group of carvings. Somebody said, you know, how long is this organization going to continue? What's it going to be down the road? Who's going to know who these guys were? We've had about, I think 6 have died already. And there's a handful that are too old to even carve now. But we decided that we would do what we call a signature collection. So everybody was assigned the task of doing a carving that represents them, whatever they want to do. But we want the carving to fit within a 3x3x12 block, not to exceed those dimensions. Out of 24 guys that were carving pieces for that initial signature collection, 6 of them didn't fit the dimensions. 6 of them exceeded the dimensions. So Marv Kaiser carved up 6 trophies, and he called it the Doofus Award. And it had a guy holding a bent, twisted ruler, and they were the coolest carvings.
Oh yeah.
So everybody that screwed up got one of Marv's carvings. And I thought, damn, the one time I followed instructions and didn't.
Been worth screwing up, wouldn't it?
I didn't get one.
Yeah.
So there were 6 winners that year is what you were saying.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
Well, Dave, it's about 10 after our time, so we've been on here a little more than an hour, and I know you're kind of limited on time. So I want to ask you one quick question. What would you have to say to someone, or what would be your advice if there was one piece of advice that you could give someone who's a brand new carver, with all the experience that you have? And we'll kind of finish it up with this. Somebody new coming into the scene of wood carving, what's the advice that somebody like yourself will give?
Wow. You know, advice is like opinions. It's like assholes. Everybody's got one.
That's right.
But I would advise them to not get their advice from Facebook. There's a lot of good information that you can get through Facebook, but there's just as much bad information. And that's just my opinion. People who have no clue what they're talking about are offering their opinion and advice. And it's too bad there wasn't a way to, police that, to
Right.
keep them from sharing bad information, because people go, oh, so that's what you do? Oh, okay. And it's like, no, that's not what you do.
Right.
So I've because I'm so sarcastic anyway, I mean, that's 90% of the information you're going to get from me is going to be sarcastic. But I try not to offer advice through Facebook, just because you give them straight information that you believe in, and other people are going to question it and not agree, and that's fine. You don't have to agree with everything you hear or everybody you see, but I think if you can get with another carver, that's the best way to get your information, get your advice. Find somebody. Don't just throw a question out there to the multitudes. If you have a specific question, ask a specific individual. Send them a private message to get your information. Don't just throw it out there and let the multitudes embark on a free for all to give you information. Find somebody who you like the work that they're doing. You like what you see them doing, and ask them for advice. But ask it specifically of them. Don't just throw it out there.
Well, and that is the difficult thing that we experience, I guess. And, you know, one of the goals that we have through this International Association of Woodcarvers and the Carving Podcast is try to keep carving going. And I think that's really everybody's goal is, you know, let's see how many new carvers we can get on the right track and heading in the right direction. And you see all this bad information that's being given by beginners to beginners. And you know, a lot of it's not going to allow them to further their experience. So it's pretty difficult to help try to keep people on the right track and heading in the right direction when you've got those people out there giving bad information and bad advice.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it's there, but it goes back to what we were saying earlier on, you know, that they're all human.
That's right.
They're all human. So.
Well, Dave, I appreciate all the time you've given to us, you know, with this and the online videos, and, you know, an hour is not enough to sit down and talk with you. So I'd love to do another one someday down the road. Where can people get a hold of you, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, to take your classes, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Facebook, and I'm just starting to get into Instagram. I like what I see on Instagram, but I don't know enough about it yet. I'm just kind of getting my toes wet, but yeah, pretty much Facebook. I had a website, but I took it down because I wasn't keeping it up. I'm spending money every year for a website that I'm not using or changing. So I kind of did away with that. Woodcarving Academy. If you go on Woodcarving Academy, all of my classes are kind of listed there. And when I have a project, I try to do 2 or 3 videos to promote it. I got in my mind that if I'm holding a carving and rotating it in a video format, I guess they can take screenshots of it. The same difference, but at least I'm not throwing photographs out there for them. So, and they get to see it all the way around and try to do it quick that way. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Don't look for me on any other on websites. Stetson Carving is no longer around.
Well, Dave, I'll mirror what Thom has said. I appreciate you taking time out to meet with us today. I always appreciate the fact that you support us. You're always available. Yeah, you know, anytime we ask, you're like, yeah, I'll be on. Just tell me what you want me to do. So I want to say thank you for that. Thank you for the friendship that we've developed through the years, and thank you for everything that you do for the wood carving community. I know a lot of people look up to you, and you know they value the time that you spend preparing for classes and sharing information and that kind of thing. And I don't think enough people say thank you. So we're going to take this opportunity to say thank you for all that you do, and thank you for coming on tonight and sharing with us during this last hour.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
The only thing I would ask is that if we do it again, you don't wear those stupid hats.
Well, luckily, since it's a podcast, only the people on YouTube will see them. So, and having said all that, on the behalf of International Association of Woodcarvers, my name is Blake Lunsford of Lunsford Carvings.
And I'm Thom Bate of Daily Woodcarving.
We thank you all for joining us on the Carving Podcast, and stay tuned for other episodes for everything having to do with carving. We'll be providing more information in the coming days and weeks about other podcasts that we'll be doing. So thank you for joining us tonight, and we'll see you again on the Carving Podcast.